Back again for another journey. The journey thanks to BMG Partners. You're with Kev Poulton and also Andrew Houlihan, another local story which I can't wait to sink my teeth into. Thanks so much for joining me, Andrew.
Thanks, Kev. Pleased to be here.
We always start with ties to the area. Tell me a little bit about how you've come to become a Albury-Wodonga local and I guess your story of growing up and schooling and all the rest.
I went to Lavington Public School, so we lived in Lavington our whole life, and then Murray High School. Left Murray High in year 10, did a apprenticeship, and then at 19 I started my own business up, and that's led me to be here for the past 52 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your business before we get onto the alter ego, the sportsman that's blossomed late in life. This is a fantastic story. Your trade and taking that to your business, what is it that you do?
So I did a trade as a fitter and turner, and then started up an engineering business. So we manufacture components for companies like Kellogg's and Nestle, export products all over the world. A lot of high-end CNC machining and plastic injection moulding. So I've had that business now for 34 years approximately, based in South Albury.
Yeah, and then you've also got another business with caravans.
Yeah, my wife and I have a caravan business, Houlihan's Caravan and RV Centre. So we've been in the caravan industry as well for about 15 years. We sell 4 different brands of caravans, and again, that's right next to our engineering business in South Albury.
Yeah, and so I know a lot of people that I've come across, if I mention your name, they sort of know of you, but don't necessarily know you directly. But that's sort of changing later in life for you as you've become involved in, I don't even know what category you call it, but essentially you've raced a motorbike in the Dakar Rally.
Yeah, it's I've raced motorbikes for 15 years or so, and I got into the desert racing or the rally style of racing 3 or 4 years ago. And I've just competed the Dakar Rally, which was the plan about 18 months ago to go to the Dakar and race. And I've been fortunate enough to be sort of travelling the world and racing bikes for the past 2 years.
Was it your first trip overseas where you almost lost your life?
Yeah, that was our first attempt at rally racing, because we'd been on motocross and track racing for 15 years, and we decided to have a go at the rally racing with no experience whatsoever. Went to Greece to the largest race in Europe, Hellas Rally, and unfortunately on the last day I had quite a serious accident and spent a lot of time in hospital overseas and was flown back to Australia, and but fortunately recovered from it all.
It's a pretty high risk sport, isn't it?
It is. There's not many events that I go in now where there's not a death throughout the race, or at least some very serious accidents. I know unfortunate this year at Dakar there was one death, but that's part and parcel of what happens. You know when you put that helmet on in these events that you're rolling a dice. Yeah.
So let's go back to Greece for a minute. It's your first attempt at the rally race. You know it's a dangerous sport. How do you prepare yourself for that, and probably more importantly, your wife and your family? Well,
we didn't really know how dangerous it was, because racing motocross and enduro in Australia for 15 years, I'd had a lot of bad injuries, broken my back, my neck, and just smashed my body to pieces. So we thought the rally racing would be a bit easier, and these are events over 7 days. So I went there with no preparation, not knowing what to expect. And then on the very last day, with 100 kilometres to go, I had a head-on accident with a rider going the wrong way, which happens quite regularly in rallies because you're navigating following a map. So that was a bit of a wake-up call. Waking up in a hospital 2 days later, not knowing what was happening.
Yeah, so that particular instance, if we can touch on that for a second, you have a head-on. Is that a blind crest or something in the course where you just suddenly find yourself in that situation, or an element of fatigue from either rider? Or
no, we're in the mountains near Patras in Greece, and it was a blind corner in some pretty rugged terrain. The other rider had made a mistake and was backtracking, doing all the right things, travelling at about 20 kilometres an hour. I was coming the other way at about 120 around a bit of a sweeping blind corner, and just hit him head on.
Have you spoken to the rider? Did that rider survive?
Yeah. He was flown back to Italy. He was fortunate enough they could get him on a flight back to Italy, a low altitude flight. And I've spoken. He lives in Israel, so I do speak to him regularly. We haven't met face to face yet, but his injuries weren't quite as bad as mine, but they were still fairly bad.
Yep. Yeah. Are you aiming to meet face to face one day?
Yeah. We speak about it, and hopefully he'll get the chance to be at Dakar in 2022 or 23, and we can meet again there.
So you've had a brush with death. What did that do to you? Did it change your mindset? Did it change values? What's it done?
Yeah, it was. That was one of the. So many good things come out of a bad thing. So. I had 4 weeks in a Greek hospital with horrendous conditions, and with my wife Katie as my main carer for that period of time. So that was a bit of a learning curve. It's changed my outlook on a lot of things, especially I was all. And I think a lot of us are. We're easy to judge other cultures and other people and religions and race, but being in a hospital room with 6 others and their families that don't speak English, varying cultures and religions, really learn a lot from it.
Yeah. Made you more tolerant, do you think?
Much more tolerant and accepting, yeah. And now, because I travel to Africa and Saudi Arabia and those types of countries, I just, I find the people so friendly, and I don't even look at them and question or think about their race or religion now.
Mm. How does your wife feel when you put the helmet on? Yeah,
she's used to it now. She's probably the biggest supporter I've got. So after the accident in Greece, she dealt with everything perfectly. So she travels to the races as much as she can with me. She couldn't get to Dakar this year because of COVID, but she'll be with us next year. And she's a big supporter. Yeah.
What's that goodbye like when you jump on a plane with a motorbike and you do know how dangerous it is? And you know she's going to be the other side of the world, and you've just got to cross your fingers and toes.
It's not a pleasant feeling, especially this year going to Dakar with the kids and Katie at the airport. The airport was deserted. I was getting on a plane with about 20 people to fly to the other side of the world into a race where there's going to be at least 1 or 2 deaths. So it's not a nice feeling, but it's now I just look at it as it's a risk I'm prepared to take every time I get on the bike.
Let's talk about being on the bike then. We've spoken about the surrounding conditions. When you get on there, what's in your mind? Are you just eternally focused on the task at hand? You don't even probably remember you're married to some degree for a period of time, I'd imagine.
You don't. You switch off to everything in the outside world. You've got so many things on that bike to consider. The terrain, the navigation systems on the bike, other riders, especially in Dakar where we've got trucks and cars flying past us through sand dunes, so you just forget about everything else. Occasionally, I went past some bad accidents and throughout the race, and that sort of wakes you up a little bit and brings you back to reality. But within a couple of minutes, you've switched off again, and you just totally, it's you in the desert, and that's it.
Is it a surreal feeling?
Yeah, you could say it is. You really don't understand what you've experienced until a few weeks or months after the race. So I'm still looking back at Dakar and even other races I've done in Africa and remembering little things that happened that you just forget about throughout the race, and then you realise how special they were.
Yeah. What about, is there ever moments where you think, geez, that could have turned out worse?
Oh, heaps of times. There's that many instances like that where you do have life and death moments every day in these races. You've just got to manage them and manage the risk and hope you got a bit of luck on your side.
Yeah. We'll talk about injuries, I think. It's probably an appropriate time to segue towards that. I know just before we've started recording this journey, you've only just recently gone under the knife again.
Yeah.
I've heard the fact that you're almost like Bionic Man. You've got that many bits and pieces added to keep you afloat each day.
Yeah.
You've obviously broken some bones over the years. Talk us through some of that.
I think now I've broken well over 50 or 55 separate fractures. The surgery I just had 2 weeks ago was surgery number 16 or 17, and I think now I've got 21 or 22 titanium pins and plates throughout my body, so it's definitely been taxing. Most of this is all motorcycle related. I've had both knees totally replaced, but I still feel like I'm probably the fittest I've nearly ever been in my life. But the motorcycling side of things is definitely had a big impact on my body.
The one thing, because I've spoken to you a couple of times pre-Dakar and obviously now, and the one thing that amazes me each time, and I'm sure other people would feel the same when they meet you, Andrew, is just how blasé almost you are about being injured, being in pain, going through surgery. I mean, I was having a chuckle just before we started this because you said you've just a couple of days ago had the surgery on the ankle, but the injuries from the Dakar race a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Talk through that one, because you had an injured wrist as well, is that right?
Yeah, I fractured my scaphoid on the third day in Dakar, and we tried to keep that as quiet as we could for as long as possible, with the risk of the Dakar finding out you've got a bad fracture. They put you out of the race. Then on day 5, I got hit by quite a large rock from another car in the front of the ankle, which caused me a lot of grief and pain. We only just got to the bottom of that and found out there was a talar dome fracture in my ankle a couple of weeks ago. So I've been walking around with that since I got back from Dakar.
This is the blasé bit.
Yeah.
So your wrist distracted you from the problem in your ankle.
Yeah. I think this was a result of the accident in Greece. The injuries I had in Greece were pretty much everything from my waist up was fractured. I think 11 fractured ribs, punctured lung, fractured neck, sternum, collarbone, eye socket. The list keeps going on. So, and I didn't have a great deal of care in the hospital. Through no fault of the hospital, it's just the conditions in Greece were quite bad, and I couldn't be moved to another hospital. So I just had to learn to deal with it and what was going on day by day. But the other patients in the room, there were some in there in a much worse condition than me. So the first couple of days, you're kind of laying there feeling a little bit sorry for yourself, and then you realise you're not as life-threatening as my injuries were. I was starting to think, well, I'm really not that bad compared to some of these other poor guys.
Perspective.
Yeah, so that opened up a whole new perspective for me, and that's when I realised, yes, you might be hurt, but it's really not that bad compared to how other people.
So has it conditioned you? Has it conditioned you as in terms of a pain threshold, so to speak? Is it?
I think it has, especially since that accident. And I've had some big accidents in some races overseas, and had some fractures throughout races, and just been able to carry on and know that I've been in a bit of trouble, but think I can get through another 4 or 5 days like this and deal with it when I get back to Australia. And so I had a year there before COVID. I was overseas about 6 times racing, and every time I come back to Australia, I was straight into hospital for surgery or a repair, and then away again.
Sounds like a sensational way of living life. but it sounds your kids, have they learnt strength from what you do, what you put yourself through?
Yeah, especially back in Greece they did, because my wife and I were away for nearly 8 weeks, and the kids were back here by themselves. They weren't aware at the time how bad the injuries were. We didn't want them to find out how bad it was, but I think they had a fair idea what was going on. So yeah, I think it's conditioned them a little bit too. My daughter's ultra competitive like me. She's sort of win at all costs, and I don't think I'm setting a real good example to her, because she's not looking after her body like we'd like her to. She thinks a little injury she shouldn't have to rest, because Dad doesn't. So.
How do you think other people would describe you, Andrew?
Look, I'd like to think they describe me as determined and competitive and quite focused, but I think sometimes I can come across as being abrupt and short, only because I spend a lot of time overseas with our rally team and with other people that don't speak a lot of English, so we communicate in different ways, and I'm fairly self-isolated over here. I don't socialise as much as I probably should, so I keep to myself a little bit. That's obviously changed a little bit in the last 12 months since I've done Dakar and some big events over there. I've had to get out and be a little bit more exposed.
And I guess if you aren't working, knowing you've got a couple of businesses, I'd usually say to people, what do you do with your spare time? I'm guessing this is it. Like, this is the full-time preparation outside of family, 2 businesses is, we're only a couple of months post the previous Dakar. Are you about to start training again? Or?
Yeah, so I have a new bike arriving next week, and then hopefully in another week after that my ankle will be fine, and I'll start training again, and that will consume between work and training, that will consume nearly every minute of my day.
Is it a hobby or is it a profession, do you think?
It started off as a hobby. Yeah. Now it's become more of a profession. We've got sponsors that we've got to make sure are happy and that provide financial support for us to do this. So, I've got quite an obligation there to make things happen.
Who do you admire the most?
It's an easy one. My wife, Katie. She's just stuck through unconditional support the whole way from start to go. Even when I was flown back to St. Vincent's from Greece, and we were in hospital there, and that was where we sort of worked out where do we go from here and what I was going to do. And she said despite the accident, she'd just had such a great time with the people we'd met and the support we'd had overseas that she said, we'll continue doing this if you want. So, yeah. And she, when I'm away and she's not with me, she's looking after both businesses and the kids, and she just takes everything in her stride so easily. Sounds
like you've both discovered life's there to live.
Yeah, it is. And the good thing now is with, we're trying to get Katie in to do some racing overseas in Africa or Europe in a side-by-side buggy, a Dakar buggy. So she's got a bit of the bug that I've got now too.
Great. I'd imagine this might be one you'd answer from a business sense or maybe from your competitive sense. Through life, we all know it, as you go through and get different experiences and different exposures to people. Maybe if you do more reading, you find great advice or great quotes. Is there anything that you sort of live by, a mantra each day?
Look, yeah, the one I've always lived by, and especially since I've been doing the rally racing, is I don't think something's worth doing if it's easy. I can't find that sense of accomplishment if I do something and it's easy. I've got to find things that are hard and something that's nearly going to break me. And I think we made a movie or a documentary at Dakar, and I think I finished the documentary off with I've been looking for that thing in life that's going to break me, and Dakar nearly did this year. So I'm always looking for something outside of my comfort zone.
Perfect place to live, really, isn't it? What do you consider to be your biggest achievement in life so far?
So far, I would say Dakar Rally now. Before that, it was obviously bringing up my kids and the family that I've got. But finishing Dakar this year with one of the hardest Dakars I've ever had, and with COVID and all the hurdles we had to get there, I'd say that was, by far the biggest accomplishment so far.
I reckon you've got a book in you. How would you go writing one, do you think?
Yeah, well, I've got a guy in Queensland that looks after all my social media and media stuff that's spoken to me about that, so that could be on the cards.
Could be on the cards. Oh, yeah. Exclusive.
Yeah.
Heard it here first. We all have sliding door moments in life where, things could change rapidly, choices made and all the rest. Have you had a few of those?
I've had a few. but I think the only one that really sticks out is the decision to, when I got out of hospital from St. Vincent's and I was in rehab after that accident, was the decision to, I could have taken that easy way out and said, no, that's enough of motorcycling. It's almost killed me.
At your age?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But then you could probably say I considered it, but it was, there's two ways I could have went. And we decided to go back and continue on doing it.
Yeah. Hey, what's made you, I know you've gathered the attention of some pretty big names in motorsport, not just your own category, but I know that you've been in conversations with some really impressive names. You don't talk about it, you don't boast about it, but you've got their attention. How do you think that's happened later in life for you?
Look, I've been lucky to be surrounded by some great people, and we put a lot of thought and effort into how we try and attract sponsorship, and we've had some good results racing in some of the biggest events in the world, and just had the right people around me. Guys like Brett Murray from Speed Cafe, and I've been introduced to the right people, but we've worked hard to get my name out there and our racing team. And obviously, we've got a brand like Coca-Cola behind us, so one of the biggest brands in the world. That helps attract a bit of attention. Yeah,
and so is this a dream? Is this something as a child you ever thought, when I grow up, I'm going to do that? Or no, not at all. It's never thought that. Growing up as a kid, I was into basketball and things like that, and I always thought I'd be playing basketball until, with my mates that I grew up playing basketball with. And then, the meeting Katie was a bit of a push towards motorbikes somehow, and now it is like I'm living a dream. When I look at where I've been and what I've done, and like you said, some of the people that I'm associating with or talking to or racing against, it really is a dream. I sit at home going, is this really happening sometimes? Must be just so surreal on and off the bike. It must be.
It is.
If you stop and reflect on it.
Especially, I'm 52, so I'm at the upper end of the scale. Guys like Toby Price and these guys are in their mid-30s, and it's to be doing this at 52 at the end, or when you should be thinking about retiring
or already retired.
Yeah, or already retired. It is like a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you wouldn't ever take that for granted.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like I said, I might sound like it's when I say you're rolling your dice every time you put that helmet on, or even when I'm training here in Australia, because I ride by myself, isolated all the time. I am quite calculated and planned about what I'm doing, so you can't take it for granted at all.
Do you ever have any mates go, let's all get our trail bikes and head up into the northeast somewhere? We better not invite you. You're too good, or?
Oh no, I wouldn't. No, I've got a group of mates. We go out into the desert here with riding. I usually a lot of the time I'll do my own thing and meet them at the destination.
Do you beat them?
They don't like to go the places I go or the distances I go in a day. So
yeah, they'll be there with the kettle on when you arrive. Yeah. The esky. Benefit of hindsight. What advice would you give a younger you?
I wish I had looked after my body a little bit better when I was younger. I've had a lot of bad accidents in my later life, but I look at when I played a lot of basketball and footy and cricket, and especially basketball, and I just never, I just went balls and all flat out hard at everything. And I was the same when I was younger. If I was hurt, I didn't really look after my body much. So I wish I had have taken a bit more care when I was younger.
Would it have made the recovery easier now? Do you think?
I mightn't have 2 titanium knees now. I might have been able to delay that a little bit longer.
What's it like when you get out of bed in the morning? Is it painful? Is it? I mean, you're probably accustomed to it and used to it now, but is there going to be long term?
Yeah, look, there's been long term pain for a few years, 5 or 6 years now, but I think I'm just used to it, and when it gets to the point, I usually know it's bad when I've got to go and see my orthopaedic surgeon and say, can you fix this? So I'm used to dealing with it. I think I'd like to be, racing Dakar, all these events up until I'm close to 60, so well, I've just got to try and manage my health a little bit better.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we all hope that you can chase what is now a current dream that you'd never had foresight to think it would be. Let's talk about 2020, because it was a different year for everybody. A lot of the theme that's come through in your interview is appreciation, that worldly, from what my observation, the worldly appreciation from exposure to different cultures and what have you, and just touring in general. I think it's safe to say so far with these journeys post-COVID, because that's a time marker now, it's safe to say a lot of people go, priorities have changed. We value things like family time and things like that, and we try to make ourselves not as busy as we were. Did COVID have an impact, or did you think you'd already learnt a lot of the things that the rest of us are learning?
Oh, no, I was still got a lot to learn too, but the year with COVID 2020 was good because not only did it give me a chance to get a few more surgeries done while I was in Australia, but I spent a lot more time with the kids, and Katie and I had a lot more family time together. So that was good. But other than that, life didn't really change too much for me, because like I said, I'm a fairly isolated sort of person anyway. So other than not being able to travel overseas to ride and train, it did give me the benefit to spend more time with my family.
And obviously prevented them joining you on your overseas.
Yeah, well, that's right. It did too, yeah.
And what surprised you about COVID?
I think it surprised me. It may sound a bit strange, but I thought people would be able to adapt a little bit better. And it may be because I've been exposed to so many different cultures and maybe bad situations. It didn't really throw my life into any sort of disorder other than not being able to travel and race. So, in our area, especially in Albury, I don't think it changed too much for a lot of businesses and people. Well, we were very lucky, so it didn't really bother me too much.
It was interesting. Whilst the border closures, both of them, very inconvenient, catastrophic and dire impacts at different times to health services and businesses and what have you. But really, if you looked again with a perspective of someone like yourself, it probably wasn't that big a challenge for us to overcome, was it?
No, and that's I kind of look at every situation like that and think, it's a little bit of discomfort and disorder for a short period of time. It's, 8 months out of your life isn't that long, but everybody reacts to situations differently, and I suppose that's just my perspective.
Bit of mind over matter?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely.
We learnt that from the pain.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I always look at things. You know what? This isn't really that bad. There's people in countries a lot worse off than us, or people in our own country a lot worse off with situations that are not that good. So.
Yeah, the old perspective goes a long way, doesn't it? What does your new normal look like?
Well, I don't really have a new normal. Like I said, my life hasn't sort of changed that much now. Other than missing out on a lot of preparation last year for Dakar, my new normal this year is I'll be able to prepare a lot. Hopefully, be back overseas within a few months racing and have a lot better preparation for Dakar 2022. Good.
And we usually wrap up with a bit of fun stuff. Oldie but a goodie, if you were able to invite 3 other people to a dinner party, alive or dead, who would you have there sitting at the table with you?
Definitely have Michael Jordan. I've always been a big fan of Michael Jordan. Mike Tyson. And just to throw a spanner in the works, I'd have Brett Murray or Crusher from Speed Cafe. I think...
Be a heck of a conversation.
I think he'd really stir the pot up with 2 guys like that.
I was going to say, there'd be some very strong opinions, some very strong ego. It'd be quite a conversation.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good trio.
Sounds like fun. Sweet or savoury when you're sitting at the table?
Definitely sweet.
Yeah.
Much to my nutritionist's disgust. But yeah.
And I guess you're probably going to answer this one because, a lot of people, when you say plans for the weekend, they're like, we're going to a winery, we're doing this. You'll probably do it on your motorbike. Is that right?
No, well, because of the recent surgery, I'm off the bike for another couple of weeks, but I'm down. My wife and I are off to Bairnsdale. I've been doing a few Dakar presentation and talks to different groups and clubs. So I've got a talk to do in Bairnsdale Saturday night.
Excellent. Well, Andrew Houlihan, really appreciate you being part of the journey and sharing your story. And I'm sure there's plenty more chapters to add to it. We look forward to the book when that does happen. We look forward to that and really appreciate your time once again.
Great. Thanks, Kev. Thanks a lot.